In the wild world of artificial intelligence, there's one company that basically has a stranglehold on the whole market. But there's a legendary challenger, one that a lot of people had counted out, that is stepping back into the ring. Today, we're going to dig into the story of AMD, the classic underdog, and ask the big question, does it actually have what it takes to land a knockout punch in this AI revolution?
This right here, this is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? For investors, for tech nerds, for everyone. Is AMD this once-in-a-generation chance to get in on the ground floor of a real NVIDIA competitor, or is the hype train just going way, way too fast? Well, we are going to break it all down. The hardware, the software, the stock price, and of course, the massive risks.
So before we can talk about the challenger, you got to understand the champion. And, well, this number pretty much says it all. NVIDIA controls somewhere around 80% of the entire AI GPU market. Folks, that's not just market leadership, that is a near monopoly. That's the mountain that AMD is trying to climb.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at how AMD even got back into this fight to begin with. Then, we'll dive into the AI arms race, putting the tech head-to-head. After that, we'll put the stock price itself on trial and see if the valuation makes any sense. Then we'll get into NVIDIA's secret weapon, its software moat. And finally, we'll lay out the whole argument for and against so you can reach your own verdict.
All right, let's kick it off with part one, the challenger's rise. For years, AMD was just seen as a distant second place, But under the leadership of CEO Dr. Lisa Su, the company pulled off one of the most incredible turnarounds in tech history, really making itself a leader in high-performance computing.
And this quote right here, it really gets to the foundation of their comeback. See, before they even seriously jumped into the AI fight, AMD was already crushing it. They were taking market share from Intel left and right, both in consumer PCs with their Ryzen chips and, more importantly, in data centers with their EPYC server chips. That success gave them the street cred and the cash to go after the biggest prize of all, AI.
And honestly, the scope of AMD's business is pretty impressive. You've got powerful CPUs, you've got top-tier gaming GPUs. They literally power the entire console gaming world with their custom chips in the PlayStation and the Xbox. But for our story today, all eyes are focused on just one thing, the Instinct accelerators, the chips built for data center AI.
And here it is. This is AMD's heavyweight contender, the Instinct MI300 series. This little piece of silicon is the heart of their entire strategy to break into that super lucrative AI data center market. It is designed to go toe-to-toe with NVIDIA's best. So, can it actually compete?
And that brings us right to the AI arms race. Look, it's not enough to just build a powerful chip. You have to prove it's as good or maybe even better than the king of the hill. This is where the real battle begins, both in the hardware and in the code.
Okay, so on a pure hardware level, let's be clear, AMD is absolutely in the game. In some really important AI tasks, like super-fast reasoning, benchmarks show their MI325X actually beats NVIDIA's H200, and it's often cheaper too. But, and this is a huge but, when you add in NVIDIA's special performance-boosting software, TensorRT, NVIDIA suddenly takes back the lead on cost efficiency. This tug-of-war between hardware and software is everything.
But the hardware is clearly good enough for the biggest names on the planet. This isn't just theory. Microsoft, Meta, Oracle, and all the big server companies are buying and deploying AMD's AI chips right now, at scale. Meta even said it's running all the live traffic for its most demanding Llama model only on AMD GPUs. That is a massive, massive vote of confidence.
And that brings us to the other half of this fight, the software. NVIDIA's CUDA platform has been the gold standard for AI developers for more than a decade. It's this huge ecosystem built on years and years of trust. AMD's answer is ROCm, which is an open-source alternative, and while it's definitely getting better, it is facing a monumental challenge trying to unseat the king. And we'll come back to just how big that challenge is in a bit.
All right, time for section 3, valuation on trial. The tech looks really promising. We get it. But what about the stock? Is all this amazing potential already priced in, or is there still room for this thing to run?
So first, let's look at the basics. The company is definitely growing. Net revenue went from about $22.7 billion in 2023 to a forecast of almost $26 billion in 2024. That's solid, healthy growth that shows their main businesses are doing really well.
But here's where things get tense.
While the revenue growth is nice, the stock is trading at a sky-high price-to-earnings ratio of nearly 100. What that means is investors are paying a huge premium because they're betting that future growth, especially from AI, is going to be so explosive that it'll justify this price tag. This right here is where the risk starts to get very, very real.
And yet, Wall Street is still pretty bullish. The average analyst price target suggests there's still more upside from here. So why is that? Because they're not looking at today's earnings. They are looking way into the future. They see an AI chip market that's projected to grow at a blistering 30% compound annual rate, and they believe AMD is perfectly positioned to grab a big slice of that pie.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 4, where we have to look at the other side of the coin, NVIDIA's software mode and all the other major risks facing AMD. Because for every reason there is to be optimistic, there's a pretty significant hurdle standing in the way.
Wow. This quote from a deep technical dive by SemiAnalysis is just brutal, and it cuts right to the heart of the problem. They found that because of all the gaps in AMD's ROCm software, AI models can actually perform worse. They get dumber compared to running on NVIDIA's CUDA. It's not just about missing a few features, it's about the quality of the final result.
The scale of this challenge is just massive. Just as one example, inside a key AI framework called SG-Lang, AMD's ROCm has less than 10% of the features that NVIDIA's CUDA has. That means over 90% of it just has gaps. Closing this software gap is AMD's single biggest challenge, and it's going to take a huge, sustained investment to even get close.
And believe me, the risks don't just stop with software. AMD is also heavily dependent on just a few very large customers. They're facing intense competition not just from NVIDIA, but also from a resurgent Intel. U.S. export rules for China have already hurt their revenue. And, of course, hanging over all of this is the question, are we in an AI bubble that's about to pop?
Okay, so that brings us to the final verdict. We've seen the incredible potential, we've seen the competitive hardware, the sky-high price tag, and the monumental risks. So, let's weigh the arguments and figure this out.
It really all boils down to this. The bull case, the optimistic view, is simple and powerful. If AMD can capture even just 10 or 20% of this massive growing AI chip market, the upside for the stock is just enormous. They've got the hardware and the backing of giants like Microsoft and Meta. But the bear case is just as strong. If they can't break through NVIDIA's software mode, all that potential might never happen. The stock is already priced for perfection, and any little slowdown in AI spending could hit it hard.
Which leaves us with one final question. Is AMD's big bet on AI a true generational opportunity to invest in the next semiconductor giant? Or is it just an overhyped gamble, a stock priced for a perfect future that may never actually arrive? The battle is far from over, and you can bet the answer is going to define the next decade of computing.